What's good, y'all? Welcome back to the Playmaker's Corner podcast. I'm your host for today, Simon Villanos, aka Coach V. And at the time I'm recording this, it is February 16th, 2026. And I'm bringing you your first ever 2026 Women's College Flag Football recap. We are recapping weeks 0 and 1. Now, we kind of categorized it a little bit differently. Week 0 to us were games starting on, I think the first one officially started on February 3rd, and then week 0 ended, at least for us, Sunday, February 8th, and then that's when week 1 would start on that following Monday, going from Monday to February 15th, Sunday. And so when we do our recaps, power rankings, playmakers of the week, just keep that in mind. We will be going from Monday to Sunday, week by week, with episodes dropping, a recap episode dropping every Tuesday, and then every Thursday it will be a recognition episode. So we'll be doing our rankings on that episode, playmaker of the week on those episodes, and just other recognition stuff from the previous week. So it won't include some games that have already been played before that Thursday episode. So just wanted to put that out there. That's our schedule for this season. And like I've been saying before on our season previews, make sure you check those out. We will be covering teams all the way from the junior college level to obviously NAIA, which we've been doing for the last couple of years as well, and then the NCAA level as well. The only level that we are not covering of women's college flag football will be mostly the club level. We might mention it in passing if a NAIA team, junior college team, NCAA team plays them, but for the most part, that will be our focus this season, NAIA, JUCO, and NCAA. Now, back to this week's episode. It's going to look a little bit different. Usually what we've done in the past and what we will be doing this season, we will separate the recap segments by the level, right? So junior college, D3, D2, D1, NAI, and then those will be the separate segments, and then you could obviously click through to find those. And if we do any individual games, we will just go ahead and separate that out into its own segments, and you can find the timestamps for those. That's how we usually do them on this week's episode. I'm just going to go down the line in order from February 3rd all the way to February 14th and just talk about every single game here. Some of these games I was able to find live streams for, and I was able to watch them back. Some of these games I was able to find clips. Some of these games I was able to find stats, and if I'm not able to find anything on them, I'm just going to say the score and then move on to the next game. So there you go there. Without further ado, let's go ahead and kick this thing off here. And by the way, for the first time ever in podcast history to start the season, we go coast to coast. We got games in California, we got games in Georgia as women's college flag football kicks off across the country. And so we will go ahead and start in California, where we have some games here on February 3rd between Golden West and Cypress. Both of these programs, junior college programs in California here, and was not able to find stats. I did find a final score here. Golden West would beat Cypress 19-6, and then I was able to find some clips of this game here. And so for Golden West, Ella Feldhaus, their quarterback, would find Jocelyn De La Torre for a very impressive catch off of the tip, and so that would go for a touchdown in the red zone. A couple plays later, or a couple drives later, Feldhaus would find De La Torre again on a tight throw to the corner here. A very tough throw and a great catch against pretty decent coverage to give them another touchdown. And then I think this was the last touchdown. I couldn't quite tell which ones were touchdowns or extra points here, but Feldhaus would find number 11, who's not listed on the roster here, but pretty sure she wore number 11, and that would go for another touchdown to end this game here. Golden West would also get multiple interceptions on defense as they really made Cypress struggle here, and that would open up the season as Golden West defeats Cypress 19-6 here in California. Now staying in California, but we're going to go ahead and move on to February 5th, 2026 here. We have another game between junior colleges, Ventura versus Santa Barbara Community College. And this game started in disaster for Ventura here. Their quarterback, Ava Ortman, would throw a pick six here in the first quarter, and Santa Barbara will get on the board 6-0. PAT would be no good, but Ventura would go ahead and quickly answer here as their quarterback would bounce back and lead them down the field. She would end up finding her receiver, I think her lead receiver in receiving touchdowns this game, Smitty Smith here, for an 8-yard touchdown. PAT would also be good. She would find Honest Watson to give them the 7-6 lead. They would then get a stop, and on the next drive here, Ortman once again finds Smith, this time for a 48-yard bomb, as Smith burns down here the defense to go ahead and score to give them the 13-6 lead. Now, in this half, that would not be the end of the fireworks, as once more on the next drive here, another long pass, this time Ortman finding Honest Watson on the right sideline, who catches a contested ball and then weaves her way to the end zone, making four defenders miss to go ahead and give them the 20-6 lead here. Ortman finding Sammy Nava, I believe, on the PAT to give them that lead. So despite a disastrous start, this Ventura offense gets off to an explosive response here, and they would not be done here, as after a Watson interception that would set up Ventura on the other side of the field, Ortman once again finds Watson for a 28-yard touchdown pass to give them the 26-6 lead here. With a couple minutes left in this game, Ortman finds Smith again on another long 65-yard touchdown here. Smith doing a lot of the work here after the catch, and then the PAT would give them the 33-6 lead here. Santa Barbara would score after that, but this game would already be over, as Ventura gets their first win of the season, and I want to say program history. They don't have any other seasons listed on their website here, but their first win over Santa Barbara Community College, 33-14. Moving on the same day, we had a matchup between Hope International at Redlands, I believe. Hope International, an NAIA team, and Redlands, a D3 team. Redlands actually in their second year, and this would be, I believe, the first game for Hope here. But to start, Ana Morales, their quarterback, finds Jasmine, I think it's Cimental, on a 16-yard touchdown to put them up 6-0 on their opening drive. Following that, on the next couple drives here, this Hope defense would stand tall, but Morales would continue to deal, finding Madison Powell on a 27-yard touchdown. PAT would be good after that one. And then before the half, she would find Nicole Haley here. She would find Nicole Cruz and then find Janiyah Haley on the PAT to push the lead to 20-0 at half, as Hope has begun to run away at this. Now, I think it's Gilly, would take over at quarterback and find Cimental for her second receiving touchdown, as well as Nicole Cruz for another extra point. Haley would then run in another touchdown before Morales, I guess, would go back in and find Anna Siddick for the extra point to make it 34-0 here at the end. And that would be your final score. Hope beats Redlands 34-0 in a dominant showing. Madison Powell, 8 receptions, 131 yards and a touchdown. Natalie Iravallo led the team for Hope with 6 flag pulls, while rusher Samantha Myers had 4 pulls and 2 sacks in their official game ever. Anahi Morales, 2 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown, at least in the time I was able to watch her, and obviously I would say your playmaker of the game. So, by the way, forgot to mention playmaker of the games for the other 2 games. In the Golden West versus Cypress game, I think Ella Feldhouse, their quarterback, obviously should win it. And then in that Ventura game, it sounds like Ava Ortman was on a roll there. So 3 quarterbacks in a row as your playmakers of the game for these first 3 games of the season. Now, moving on a couple days, we're going to February 7th, and we are also going to flip to the East Coast, all the way out in Georgia, over at Brewton Parker Christian University, where they would host a number of games between some women's college flag football programs. Let's go ahead and start with this one. LaGrange, D3 versus Brewton Parker Christian and NAIA school. LaGrange in year 2, Brewton Parker Christian opening the season here, and they would go ahead and come out and win their first game ever. Mari Naiden will get the party started with a 46-yard rush on their opening drive. Now, they would stall out and would not be able to score, but a stop later, they would get the ball back, and then their quarterback, Tamaria Williams, would find Naiden on a 35-yard touchdown to give Brewton Parker Christian their first ever touchdown in program history and a 6-0 lead. Now, a couple Brewton Parker touchdowns later, and they would be up 26-0 at half, as this one was really not that close here. And I got some stats from this game. So let's go ahead and start with Brewton Parker Christian here. At quarterback, Sienna Johnson ended up getting the majority of the passing snaps, 13 of 17 for 96 yards and 3 touchdowns. You obviously have Tamaria Williams, who only threw 2 passes, 2 of 2 for 22 yards and a touchdown. On the ground, though, Mari Naiden led with that 146-yard rush. As far as receivers go, your leader in this game is Sierra O'Brien with 3 receptions for 41 yards and a touchdown. Mari Naiden, 2 for 35 and a touchdown. Denasia Leonard-Potts, 4 for 25 and 2 touchdowns. And then you also have Kinsley, I think it's Guerenyi, with 124-yard reception. On defense for Brewton Parker, 2 players led in flagpoles, Kennedy Osborne and Abby Tawalt. Tawalt also having an interception for them. For LaGrange, they really struggled in this game, really not able to get too much going here. Negative 22 yards passing, an interception here, only 12 yards rushing here. It's just not very productive. A lot of passes behind the line of scrimmage. Defensively, Elliott led with 8 flagpoles, and they did not get any turnovers, as Brewton Parker Christian dominates in what I believe is their home opener, 26-0. Following that, Brewton Parker Christian would then play first-year program Andrew College, who is currently a JUCO, but after this summer will be considered an NAIA school here. So I'm going to just consider them NAIA for this season. And Brewton Parker Christian continues to roll. They beat them 42-0. It was 14-0 by the end of the first, with touchdowns by Sierra O'Brien and Michaela Fudge here. And like I said, this one was over before it even really got started. Brewton Parker Christian red hot to start the season here. Here are the stats for them. Interesting enough, started 2 different quarterbacks here. Leonie Gill, 8 of 15 for 92 yards and 2 touchdowns, got the majority of the passing snaps. Sienna Johnson, 2 of 4 for 85 yards, 2 touchdowns, but also threw 2 picks here. Michaela Fudge had a 41-yard rushing gain there, and then Johnson had a rushing touchdown. Through the air, Denasia Leonard-Potts, 3 for 47 and a touchdown. Tamaria Williams had 1 for 46. Kinsley Guerenyi, had 1 for 34. Mari Naiden had a receiving touchdown for 28 yards, as well as Michaela Fudge and Sierra O'Brien each getting a touchdown. On defense, he had 2 players tied in flagpoles, Karen Cummings and Mari Naiden. Each had a tackle for loss. And then you had interceptions from Sierra O'Brien, who had a 59-yard return on hers. And then Starnisha White and Nasia White each having an interception as well. For Andrew College, the struggles were there in their first game, I believe. Stoker at quarterback, 6 of 11 for 40 yards, 2 interceptions. Carter and Baker, as well as Stephenson and Young, all got some pass attempts here. So a lot of different players throwing the ball, which is never what you want to see when you are starting a flag football program. Some indecisiveness at quarterback. On the ground, though, Stoker had 49 rushing yards, but their lead receiver was Stephenson with 6 for 38 yards. On defense for Andrew College, Brown had 2 interceptions, but that was about it, as Brewton Parker Christian dominates Andrew College in this one, 42-0, to start the season 2-0. Moving on to the next game, the third one of the day for Brewton Parker Christian here. They would play Emmanuel, a D2 program who is entering year 2. And like I said, Brewton Parker Christian off to a pretty nice start. And this one would be a little bit of a gridlock for the majority of the game. It wasn't really until the third quarter with 3:27 left that Sophia Sosa for Brewton Parker Christian broke through for a big time sack here to make it a 2-0 game here. And then it would pretty much stay that way for the majority of the game until Emmanuel had one final gasp, one final drive here, where Lillian Stevenson finds Gwen Carter on a 24-yard touchdown with 11 seconds left to give them the 6-2 lead. At this point, there was less than 11 seconds left here for Brewton Parker Christian, and they would not have enough time to respond as they would fall in a tough one, 6-2 in what was a very low scoring game. I do have the stats for this one. For Brewton Parker Christian, they would actually settle with Sienna Johnson at quarterback, and she struggled. 9 of 23, 84 yards, 4 interceptions, did have 73 rushing yards. Tamaria Williams had 1 pass attempt and 15 rushing yards there, but not really too much going for this offense that was scoring at will to start the day. And maybe this is fatigue as well, being their third game, and that is a lot for a college squad, for really any type of squad here, but definitely not their best performance. As far as receiving goes, Tamaria Williams led 3 for 44, followed by Kishana Gusby 2 for 15, and Mari Nyden 2 for 9 through the air. Like I said, offense really struggled to find any rhythm, sustaining drives, or really scoring there as well. Defensively, though, they did very well. Sophia Sosa had herself an absolute game. 12 flagpoles, 6 tackles for losses, 5 sacks, including the one that would give them the lead for the majority of this game here. Makai Griffin had 4 flagpoles and 2 pass breakups. Sienna Johnson had 3 pulls and a pass breakup as well. But unfortunately, that big touchdown they allowed at the end would be back-breaking. For Emmanuel, though, Lillian Stevenson, 19 of 39, 183 yards and 1 touchdown. No turnovers for them, which did end up being the big difference in this game here. Through the air, Brown had 7 receptions for 69 yards, Robinson 2 for 48, and then obviously Gwen Carter with that 24-yard touchdown to win them the game was absolutely massive for them. For Emmanuel, Brown led with 5 flagpoles. Spivey had 2 interceptions. Young had an interception, and Robinson had an interception in this game. And once again, playmaker of the game, I would say, would have to be Carter, if not Stevenson. Both of them played at a high level. For Brewton Parker Christian, the last couple games, I think it's fair to say Sienna Johnson or Mari Nyden could definitely have been your playmaker of the games in their past 2 ones. But in this one, it had to have been Carter, which is tough because I definitely think Sophia Sosa could have won it if they won this game. But you know, you live and you learn through these early games here. And even then, for Brewton Parker Christian, 2-1 on the day, really cannot complain about that. Moving on, let me talk about the other games that happened at Brewton Parker Christian. I think I might have went a little out of order because there's no way that Brewton Parker played 3 games in a row. But anyways, let's go to Emmanuel. They would actually open up their day against Andrew College, and you know, they would start off with a bang. Gwen Carter with the pick 6 gave them the early 7-0 lead after the successful PAT. In the second, Emmanuel would drive with about 11:10 on the clock to start. And this drive would end with this being the second to last play, Stevenson finding Gianna Brown for 16 yards. And then Gwen Carter would cap off this drive again, this time with a 10-yard rush to give them the 14-0 lead. In their third drive, Stevenson would then find Gianna Brown on a 9-yard score to make it 21-0, and it would really not be close after that. After halftime here, the Emmanuel Lions would keep it going. Stevenson finds Brown again on a 42-yard touchdown to make it 28-0, and it would basically be over after that. So there you go there. Emmanuel winning pretty big here, 35-0 over Andrew College. Now, I do have some stats here. I was able to find those a little bit late. Let's go ahead and start with Emmanuel Stevenson with a great game. 10 of 14, 103 yards, 2 touchdowns. Gwen Carter had a rushing touchdown. Stevenson, by the way, also had a rushing touchdown in this one. Lead receivers for them was Gianna Brown, 5 receptions, 70 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So next closest was Stoker with 2 of 17 and Carter with 2 for 11. On defense here, Gianna Brown led with 7 flag pulls. You also had Gwen Carter with 2 interceptions, Spivey with a sack, and Bishop with a sack as well, leading them to victory. For Andrew College, the struggles continue. Janiyah Evans, 5 of 16 for this. I don't know if this is right here, but it says 1 yard. Like I said, a lot of passes backwards, I guess, and an interception. Kayla Johnson led with 17 rushing yards, which is something. And then their lead receiver was Kayla Johnson for a 4 receptions for 4 yards, but they did have a receiver with -5 yards, so that's tough. Defensively, Kamaya Grant and Kayla Johnson co-led with 4 flag pulls each, but definitely not enough to take down Emmanuel. Emmanuel getting a big win over Andrew, 35-0. Let's go ahead and move on here. Emmanuel would then play LaGrange here. And this one would start off pretty quietly. Neither team scoring on the first drive, though. So let's go ahead and skip to the second quarter, where Emmanuel would go ahead and find the end zone. Lillian Stevenson to Brown on a 1-yard touchdown, and the PAT would be good to give them the 7-0 lead. LaGrange would then go ahead and answer back here with 20 seconds left here in the second quarter, with a touchdown to make it 7-6 going into half. Now, after another quiet third quarter, in the fourth, Emmanuel would add a 1-yard score from Elsie Baker to make it 14-6. But then a minute later, James, hopefully I'm saying that right, Spivey would pick off Gracie Scott and return it for a touchdown from 16 yards out to give Emmanuel the dominant 19-6 lead, and that is where the score would stay. Emmanuel beating them 19-6 here. Let's go ahead and look at the stats for Emmanuel. So looking at this, Stevenson had a decent game, 14 of 31, 117 yards, 2 touchdowns here. Completions a lot less than the previous game. As far as receiving goes, Gianna Brown would lead with 6 receptions for 91 yards and a touchdown. Baker 4 for 29 and a touchdown there. Defensively, though, Cooper Riley and Spivey co-led with 3 flag pulls, with Spivey getting 2 interceptions, including that pick 6 to go ahead and seal this one for Emmanuel. For LaGrange here, Gracie Scott struggled, 4-14, 34 yards, did throw a touchdown, but had 2 picks here. Scott did have 81 rushing yards, but just struggled through the air. Receiving-wise here, Jordan Rawlings was their lead receiver, 1 reception for 15 yards, and then Carson, I think it's Makuch, had that 1 8-yard receiving touchdown from Scott. For LaGrange on defense, Renaya Elliott led with 7 flag pulls. You also had a sack from Tanaya Blackmo, I want to say, and then Kate Sturgis as well, but that would not be enough, as Emmanuel would defeat LaGrange 19-6. Now let's go ahead and move up the coast here, going from Georgia to North Carolina. We're going to Lise McRae's home field in Banner Elk, North Carolina, as they would play their first games. It was against a club team in North Carolina Central, but because it was Lise McRae's first games, I wanted to make sure I mentioned them and talked about those games. They played 2 games, so neither of them was close. Lise McRae beating them 57-0 and then 53-0 to start the season 2-0 here. And I have the stats from those games. Let's start with the 57-0 game. Mackenzie Hicks at quarterback picks up where she left off last year, 13 of 19, 236 yards, 6 touchdowns, and a pick here. On the ground, Kennedy Van Noy also picking up from where she left off last year, going from William Woods to Lise McRae. 3 rushes for 47 yards and a touchdown. Hicks also had a 10-yard rushing touchdowns. 10-yard rushing touchdown, excuse me. So 7 rushing touchdowns on the day. Obviously, your playmaker of the game right there. As far as receiving goes, Ashley Alvarado, 5 receptions, 97 yards, 3 touchdowns. Natalia Hernandez de Leon picking up from where she left off as well. 2 for 51 and a touchdown. Van Noy, 2 for 32. And then you had Tammy Chatwood and Shelby McLean each getting a touchdown in this matchup. On defense for them, Sophia Antui Silva, 8 total flag pulls, 6 for loss, 4 sacks in this one. And then Van Noy, Natalia Hernandez de Leon, and Jaden Jalbert picking off from last year as well, all coming from William Woods. Each had an interception in this game. For North Carolina Central, it was a tough going here. Gabrielle Frazier Bodie, 52 yards and 2 picks, and then their lead receiver was Eliza Taylor on a 49-yarder there. Kels Dumpson and Mariah Byers led with 3 and 2 flag pulls. Dumpson with an interception in that first matchup. Looking at their second game here, where they won 53-0, Lisa McRae and the offense continues to roll as Mackenzie Hicks was on fire on this day, 12 of 19 for 136 yards, 5 touchdowns, only 1 pick here for them. On the ground, Mackenzie Walker was their lead rusher with 5. As far as receiving goes, Kennedy Van Noy, 1 for 38 and a touchdown. Natalia Hernandez de Leon, 4 for 31 and 2 touchdowns. Tammy Chatwood, 3 for 23 and a touchdown. Jalbert also catching a touchdown in this one as well. Defensively, Mackenzie Walker led with 4 pulls, a sack, and a 25-yard return on an interception. Natalia Hernandez de Leon and Sophia Antui Silva right behind her with 3 pulls each. Antui Silva with a sack as well. You also had interceptions from Ashley Alvarado, Kennedy Van Noy, and Kamora Brown as they take care of business. For North Carolina Central, struggles continue. Started a new quarterback, Savannah Stevie, 4 of 17 though for 20 yards and 4 picks, unfortunately. Frazier Bodie, 2 of 3 for 15 yards here. Their lead receiver being Eliza Taylor, who had 2 for 28. And then their lead flag puller was Dumpson with 6 pulls, 2 tackles for loss, and a sack here. And then I think it's Mikey Haley had an interception for them. But Lisa McRae starts out a strong 2-0 here to start their season. And their first 2 wins in program history. They will go ahead and play a much tougher opponent in Kaiser later this week here. So excited for that one. Also playing Daytona State and Thomas at Florida Gateway later this upcoming week too. So a good start to the season as it'll get tougher moving on. Alright, now the last game from the Saturday and week 0, we had Simpson at Irvine Valley. We're going back to California for this one. Simpson, a first-year program, NAIA program, and then Irvine Valley going into year 2, I believe, a junior college program, and probably one of the best in the country. And Irvine Valley picks up where they left off, winning 28-12 in Simpson's first game ever here. And so there you go. That'll wrap up week 0. Moving on to week 1, we have a Monday game on February 9th. Penn State Schuykill and St. Joseph, a D3 matchup, I believe here. Schuykill in year 2. St. Joseph, I believe this is year 1 for them. Wasn't sure which St. Joseph's it was here, as it was not clarified anywhere. But Penn State Schuykill wins 21-6. Now going from Pennsylvania all the way back to California, we got some more junior college action. Irvine Valley going over to Redlands, a D3 program. Let's go ahead and hop into this one. I was able to watch it. Kayla Chapel in at quarterback for Irvine Valley on the first drive. Throws a dot to Maya Helmar on the corner route to put them up 6-0 with 6:53 left. On the PAT, Chapel rolls left and throws right over the middle to make it 7-0 early. Chapel with some great quarterback play here. This is my first time watching her play. Now, for Redlands, early drops would then force their quarterback Cheyenne Smith to roll left and then make an ill-advised throw over the middle here. And this one is picked by Maya Helmar as Irvine Valley is set up. After a short throw from Chapel to Marisol Gongora, who does the rest, she would get them into the red zone on the 5-ish yard line. Irvine Valley will then direct snap it to Maya McKenna, and she would run it in right up the middle to make it 13-0 with 4:13 left in the first. After a penalty on the first PAT attempt, it's now 1st and 10 here, and Chapel, under pressure, finds a open Maya McKenna, who wins the edge to make it 14-0. Redlands here on drive number 2. Their quarterback Cheyenne Smith would scramble for a first down, but a bad snap would end up killing this drive and they would end up punting. For Irvine Valley, they pick up where they left off. Chapel throwing a beauty of a go ball to Gongora that just gets past the safety, who was in cover 2 here, but this was just a perfect pass and catch here to make it a quick 20-0 with a minute left here in the first quarter. For Redlands, already down 3 score, trying to get something going, and they do get a little bit of something. Smith finds Avery Stuns on a nice play to get them close to midfield, but then Smith will try to throw it deep here, and Maya McKenna just blankets this receiver in one-on-one and gets a big-time interception on one of it looks to me to have been a miscommunication between the quarterback and wide receiver. Regardless, Irvine Valley with another chance here to go ahead and score. And that's what they do. Akela Chapel actually finding a couple different receivers as they drive down the field, hitting a flow state. And Chapel finds Gongora once more to make it 26-0, as this one is over. Irvine Valley ends up beating Redlands 52-0. Playmaker of the game, I think, is really easy for me. It has to be Akela Chapel, who showed out with 4 passing touchdowns in the first half for Irvine Valley, getting a big-time win in their second game of the season. On the same day here in California, we also had a couple other games going on between East Los Angeles and El Camino, both junior colleges. And in game 1, ELAC wins 18-12. They would also win the second game of that day 6-0. So both very close games. Unfortunately, cannot find stats or videos of any of those games, but just wanted to mention those. Moving on, we have more junior college action. This time on February 11th here, we have Saddleback versus Ventura here. When I looked at this, Saddleback actually listed the games against Redlands and Hope back in January as official games. I wasn't sure here, so technically 2-0 going into this game here. And then Ventura, I think, had that one loss earlier to... Ventura beat Santa Barbara, so they had that one win going into this game here. So let's go ahead and hop right into it here. To start this game, in the first quarter, no opening scores here. Defense playing well early. But here in the second quarter, Saddleback would get started. They would take over on the Ventura 25 and took 3 plays to get into the end zone here. And it would be Brooklyn Harris finding Grace, I think it's Goddard, in the corner of the end zone for a nice throw to make it 6-0. They would then go for 2, which would be key here, and would get it to make it an 8-0 lead. Ventura, though, would come alive and answer right here at the end of the second quarter when April Luna ended up finding Tanaya Marino on a 19-yard touchdown to cut the lead to 8-6 with about a minute 15 left in the half. Ventura would try to go for 2 here to tie this game, but they would not be able to get it here. Saddleback would not score at the end of this quarter as they would go into the half, Saddleback leading 8-6 over Ventura. Now in the third quarter, the defensive gridlock continues here as both teams were not able to score. But at the top of the fourth here, Saddleback would go ahead and get a key play here. Kira Clavio finding Isabel Whitaker wide open on a 32-yard touchdown to go ahead and extend the lead. Clavio then finds Goddard in the corner, who manages to get a foot down on the extra point to make it a 15-6 lead, a 9-point lead with 11:45 left in the game, so still plenty of time here. But for Ventura, definitely need to score and then have enough time to get the ball back as well. Now Ventura obviously not not able to score right away here and would actually use up a lot of time here, but would end up scoring as Sophia Moran finds Honest Watson on a 3-yard score with just under 2 minutes left here. They would go for the extra point, but once again would not get it, and so they would be down 15-12. Like I said, needed to get the ball back here. Saddleback would end up running out a lot of the clock here, but would end up punting with just a couple seconds left here. Not really any time to put together a drive, and so they would punt it. Watson would return it, but they would pull her down as the clock expires here. Saddleback now officially 3-0. Ventura taking a loss here, 15-12. Now let's go ahead and look at the box score here before we talk playmaker of the game here. Let's start with Saddleback. Kira Clavillo, 7 of 14, 69 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Brooklyn Harris, 5 of 11, 25 yards, and a touchdown. Harris also had 29 rushing yards. Clavillo right behind her with 15. As far as receiving goes, Isabel Whitaker, 3 of 49, and a touchdown. Olivia Green, 4 of 26, and then Grace Goddard, 2 receptions, 8 yards, and a touchdown. Defensively for Saddleback here, let me scroll down just a little bit. It was Jessa Johnston that led with 9 flagpoles, also had a sack, 2 tackles for loss and a pass breakup. Ella Henry right behind her with 6, a sack, and 4 TFLs here, and then no interceptions for this team. For Ventura, April Luna, 22 of 36, 175 yards and a touchdown here, but it would be Sophia Moran who would score their other one, 4 of 7 for 72 yards and a touchdown there. As far as receiving goes, Honest Watson with the game. 13 receptions for 129 yards and a touchdown, followed by Tanai Marino, 6 of 55 and a touchdown, and Sammy Nava, 3 for 22 and no touchdowns there. Defensively for Ventura, Sophia Moran led with 9 flagpoles, 2 sacks, a tackle for loss, and a pass breakup, followed by Honest Watson, Janae Dixon, and Tanai Marino, each having 3 as well. And then there was 1 interception from Sammy Nava. All right, now, playmaker of the game is tough. I don't want to just keep picking quarterbacks here, but I think I'm going to have to go with Grace Goddard for Saddleback here for the Bobcats. She caught that first touchdown, and then she also got that key PAT on that second touchdown, which would basically put this one away here because of her scores. I mean, Ventura, they would have needed 3 scores to go ahead and beat Saddleback. So there you go there. That is your playmaker of the game. Once more, Saddleback defeats Ventura in a thriller 15-12. Moving on quickly here, Irvine Valley will go to Cal Lutheran, who has a club team, and they would take care of them 60-6 in a big-time dub. And then our last game that we're going to talk about from February 11th is La Sierra versus Mira Costa College, an NAIA program versus a junior college there, respectively. I believe this is year 1 for La Sierra, and then Mira Costa, I believe they played last season, so this is year 2 for them. La Sierra coming off of that big win, which they counted against Redlands 36-6 back in January. I wasn't sure if that was actually counted or not, but I think they are counting it. So, boom, there you go there. Let's go ahead and hop into the action. Mira Costa, by the way, could not find a roster for them. But they would start with the ball, and their quarterback would be number 25 here. After an early deflection on first down, she would take a shot here, but this one would be easily intercepted by number 20 of La Sierra, I believe. Well, I guess she's not listed on the roster, so that is interesting. But it would be intercepted by her as La Sierra would go ahead and start in the red zone. Or at least they would have if it wasn't for this penalty that would happen on the return. So now it is 1st and 10, still though, past midfield. And so here we go, number 9, Ariana Rivera in at quarterback for La Sierra. She finds number 33, Haley Medina, twice. And on the second time, Medina spins out of a couple poles here to put them in the red zone. On the next play, Rivera rolls out right and finds number 2, I believe, who is Danielle Gomez, and she would go ahead and score to make it 6-0 with 10:09 left in the first. Following that, a quick throw to number 3, Grace Galdamez on the drag will make it 7-0 as La Sierra takes the lead. Mira Costa will then go ahead and hand it off to number 15, who goes ahead and finds an opening on the right side and takes it all the way to the house to make it 6-7 as they would go ahead and have a chance to tie this one up. But on the PAT, their quarterback would get sacked here, so La Sierra continues to have the lead. Now, they would go ahead and take over here. We'll get close to midfield, but the pass would be tipped on a 4th and 1, and so that would be a turnover on downs as Mira Costa takes over with the 1st and 19 past midfield. Following that, they would go ahead and throw an out route here to, I believe it is number 23, and she would go ahead and give them a first down in the red zone. Following that, a big-time throw on a dig route and some runs. They would find themselves in a 4th and 1 situation. On 4th and 1, they would go ahead and run a play action, and number 25, their quarterback, would find a wide-open number 5 in the corner of the end zone to give them the 12-7 lead. The PAT is incomplete, though. La Sierra then takes over here, and Rivera finds Victoria Das on the drag, who spins and gives them a first down. A couple plays later, it's a key 3rd down, and Rivera rolls right, and then just ends up running and scrambling to give them the first pass midfield. Then they would get hit with a couple consecutive penalties and find themselves in a 3rd and long situation where they would end up running a little bit of trickery. They would hand it off on a sweep to Grace Galdamez, who then launches one deep to a wide open Danielle Gomez, who almost scores if it wasn't for a last-second pull. That obviously puts La Sierra in the red zone. They will then run a sweep to Haley Medina, who gives them the lead walking in to make it 13-12. Rivera then finds Medina left here to make it 14-12 as the first quarter ends. Let's go ahead and skip to the second quarter here. Mira Costa, they would take some deep shots on this drive, but would end up fizzling out here as they would end up being forced to punt. La Sierra, they would take over past midfield. A couple Rivera scrambles would actually put them in the red zone here, but after some incompletions, they would not be able to score as the dual rushers for Mira Costa would force an incompletion. Mira Costa, though, would go 3 and out here as La Sierra would once again get the ball past midfield. They would get into the red zone here, but once more, their quarterback takes a tough sack on 4th down as this Mira Costa pass rush is really getting to her. So there you go there. And so Mira Costa takes over after 2 straight red zone stops here, but an unfortunate throw, 25 throwing it over the middle, and Mackenzie McMillan picking it off over the middle. She jumps this route, and she goes to the house as La Sierra takes the 20-12 lead here. PAT is dropped, but the lead stays here. Mira Costa isn't able to do anything at the end of this half, and so that will be the score at halftime. La Sierra leads Mira Costa 20-12. Now here in the third quarter, La Sierra starts with the ball. A couple plays in, Haley Medina takes a check down and makes some players miss for a massive gain. Add on a holding penalty on the defense, and that gives them a 1st and 15 past midfield. They'll then complete a pass here for about 3 or so yards here from the first down marker, but then 2 straight completions would go ahead and bring up a 4th and 3 here on the edge of the red zone. And on 4th and 3, here's what happens. Ariana Rivera gets the snap, rolls left, sees she has room, and she takes it, and then there's more as she accelerates, walking it in from 23 yards out for a big-time touchdown to give La Sierra the 26-12 lead early in the third. PAT would be picked off, but that would not matter. Mira Costa would then struggle to get really anything going here. It wouldn't really be until near the end of the third, start of the fourth, where a contested catch by number 6 here would go ahead and put them in the red zone. And so here we go. Top of the fourth quarter, Mira Costa in the red zone. A quick pass moves them closer here, which would then set up this throw to number 23, their center, over the middle, who would go ahead and catch it to cut into this lead, making it 26-18. Their quarterback, number 25, would then find number 4 in the back of the end zone to make it 26-19, as this now becomes a one-score game. Now, neither team would score after this. La Sierra would get close here, but would stall in the red zone. And then at this point, Mira Costa, they just did not have enough consistency to sustain yet another drive, as La Sierra wins a classic here, 26-19 here. And this was a very good game, a very fun game, as I was watching both teams for the first time here. And I gotta say, number 9 Ariana Rivera really impressed me, just being an absolute dual threat. I think she is definitely the playmaker of the game of this one. Moving on, it is February 12th here, and we got a game back in Georgia. Brewton Parker Christian hosting Huntingdon College, a second-year program, a battle between a D3 in Huntingdon and NAI and Brewton Parker Christian. And this one would be a pretty low-scoring game here, as most of the scoring, I think all of the scoring, happened in the first half. To start, Kennedy Young would go ahead and find Shalimar St. Juice for a touchdown to put them on the board. PAT would also be good. And then I believe Brewton Parker Christian would respond. Sienna Johnson in at quarterback would go ahead and throw a touchdown to Kinsley Guerini to go ahead and bring it back within a one-score game. They will not get the PAT, though, but at the end of this, or near the end of this second quarter, Huntingdon's Kennedy Young would go ahead and run in a touchdown to go ahead and give them the advantage of there, a 13-6 advantage. And from there, they would be scoreless going into the second half here. Plenty of opportunities for Brewton Parker to retake the lead, but the offense just struggled to close this one out, while the defense for Huntingdon did a good job. And the defense for Brewton Parker did a good job holding them scoreless in the second half and keeping them in that game. So there you go there. Huntingdon wins 13-6 over Brewton Parker Christian. Let's go over the stats. Kennedy Young, 20 of 34, 159 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 picks. Did have that rushing touchdown, though. As far as throwing goes, receiving goes, Shalimar St. Juice, 7 for 55 and a touchdown. Kyler Rome, 7 for 32, also had a 13-yard rush. And then Khalees Russell had 1 for 18, and Deasia Williams, 2 for 18 for them. On defense, though, Ashley Saju, 5 flag pulls. Sincere Johnson, 4 flag pulls. Tamaya Carter had 2 sacks, and then Michaela Allen had an interception in this one. If I had to go ahead and pick a playmaker of the game, I think I'd probably go with Kennedy Young, even though it wasn't her cleanest game. Still scored those 2 that would end up winning them this one over Brewton Parker Christian in a close one, 13-6. For BPC, though, let's go ahead and talk about them. Sienna Johnson, 12 of 30, 118 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick here. Tamaria Williams had 1 pass attempt, but it went for 0 yards, as Sienna Johnson looks to have locked up this quarterback position for now. Johnson also had 49 rushing yards. Mari 9 behind her with 10 rushing yards. Sierra O'Brien, 4 for 39. Tamaria Williams, 4 for 33. Nasia Leonard-Potts, 2 for 31. And then Kinsley Guerini had that 1 receiving touchdown. Also had 2 receptions for 15 yards. On defense for them, Mari Naiden, 5 flag pulls and an interception. Kennedy Osborne, 3 and an interception. And then Kinsley Guerini also had an interception as well, as Brewton Parker Christian falls in a close one, 13-6 to Huntingdon. All right, now moving on to Friday the 13th, February here. We have Daytona State playing Andrew College, and I got to watch a little bit of this one, but this one was just not super close. At the end of the first, Daytona was up 20-0, and they would actually end up winning 87-0, the biggest margin of victory we have seen so far this season, very early in the season. Let's go ahead and look at the stats here, starting with Daytona State, who won big. Shania Spencer starting at quarterback, looking like they have a new starting quarterback quarterback this year. The freshman went 12 of 19 for 224 yards and 7 touchdowns for them. Jillian Trudeau also got in there, 1 of 1 for 20 yards and a touchdown. Also had 20 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown for her as well. Haley Walsh also had a rushing touchdown in this game. As far as receiving goes, Liliana Da Silva, 3 for 163 yards and 3 touchdowns. 3 catches for 3 touchdowns is insane. Aubrey Barak, 3 for 23 and a touchdown. Jan, I want to say, Fan, 1 20-yard reception for a touchdown. Ella Casey, 1 15-yard reception for a touchdown. Haley Walsh, 3 receptions for 15 yards and 2 touchdowns to go with a rushing touchdown. And then you have Adriana Malamucci with 1 reception for 10 yards. As far as defense goes for them, Zena Bellamy, 2 interceptions. 1 of those was a pick 6. Shania Spencer, 3 interceptions. 2 of those were a pick 6. Kiara Gomez had a pick. Jillian Trudeau had a pick there as well. And then defensively, Aubrey Barak led with 3 flagpoles. Katie Rodney had a sack for them. And I think the obvious playmaker of the game here has to be Shania Spencer, who did amazing through the air. Like I said, 7 touchdowns, but also had 3 interceptions, 2 pick 6s, and an amazing debut. For Andrew College, a lot of struggles early on here. Ava Davis, 7 of 13, 61 yards, 3 picks. Ramaya Giro, 6 of 19 for 20 yards and 4 picks, not doing much better. The lead receiver was Izoria Smith, 5 receptions for 60 yards. A lot of that coming on a 50-yard gain there. And then nobody else, Kamaya Grant had 3 receptions. Ava Davis had 2 receptions, but they weren't for positive yards. Defensively, for Andrew College, it was Ramaya Giro who led with basically 3 pulls. But that is pretty much it, as Daytona State dominates in their opening game, 87-0 over Andrew College. Moving on, we have Daytona State playing the host team, which is Point, as this did take place in Georgia. Point coming off of another rough year. I believe they have a new coaching staff over there as well, while Daytona, going into year 2 started off strong. And so let's go ahead and hop right into it. It is Amara Davila who's starting at quarterback for Point. She gets it started, finding Kenzie Fillion on drive 1 for a big first down to approach midfield. She would then throw the drag route to Shanera Shahid to get them across the midfield here as Point is moving. And then Davila originally finds Shahid up the seam for a big-time touchdown, but a penalty brings that all the way back. And then on the next play, Davila throws it, and it is picked off by Zena Bellamy, who kills a promising drive. So 8:04 left here. Daytona State takes over on drive number 1. Shania Spencer at quarterback leads a methodical drive, finding number 12 Ella Casey on an out route to get them across midfield. A couple plays later, it is 4th and short here, and the ball gets tipped at the line. That forces a turnover on downs. On drive number 2 here, doesn't go far, as on play number 2, Shania Spencer jumps a big-time pass for an interception to set up Daytona across midfield. But Shania Spencer, now at quarterback, throws an interception to Kiara Thomas on the play right after that, as both teams are kind of playing sloppy football here. Point then takes over, but the defense for Daytona is sharp, and they force a quick 3 and out. Daytona's offense comes back out here, but it looks like there's a miscommunication a couple plays in after they get across midfield. Spencer throws it deep, but Kenzie Fillion, like I said, picks it off. A miscommunication between the receiver and quarterback, as both teams are scoreless with 8:40 left through the second. Now, on the direct play after that, Davila tries to thread the needle on a corner route, and Shania Spencer makes an excellent high-point interception to end yet another Point drive. It looked like it was just going to be complete there, but Spencer just erases that completely. Now, with multiple turnovers going on, eventually Daytona State settles down here. Spencer checks it down to Walsh. She gets them across the midfield. 2 throws in a row to Adriana Malamucci, and she keeps the drive going as they approach the red zone. A direct snap to Haley Walsh, who runs it in, gets them into the red zone for the first time today. On first down here, Spencer threads the needle to Liliana Da Silva, who brings it in a tough throw to put them up 6-0. Spencer then rolls out left on the PAT and throws it to the front pylon to Ella Casey to make it 7-0 with 3 minutes left in the second, the first score of the game. Now, after a promising catch by Kenzie Fillion on this point drive to start here, they go ahead and try to test former Thomas Nighthawk, Denisia Turner, who goes stride for stride with the receiver deep on the go route and locks it up and intercepts it for the fourth interception for Daytona State of the half. Now, a minute 48 left here, Daytona State with an opportunity to go ahead and score. They throw it, but this one is tipped up by a receiver and picked off by point Shanera Shahid, who makes an excellent diving interception here. And then on the play right after, Davila finds Leah Prather, who makes an excellent decision, pitching it right to Leah Nathan, who then takes it down the right sideline, makes a player miss, and goes to the house to ignite this home crowd 7-6, as Point gets a much-needed touchdown, only an extra point away here, and they would not end up getting it. A great pass deflection would keep it at 7-6. Now, about a minute 42 left here in the first half. Daytona State, they get rolling here, and they get into the red zone thanks to some nice catches and runs by Katie Rodney. So 1st and 10 here in the red zone on a nice drive so far. Shania Spencer rolls right, and she just ends up beating the defense to the corner, accelerating in, splitting two defenders, and putting Daytona back up 13-6 here. And good coverage by Point keeps it at 13-6. As the PAT is no good. And that would be the score going to halfway. Daytona State leading Point there. 7 turnovers by both teams going into half. And outside of one big play by Point, Daytona State has pretty much consistently been driving here, going 2 for 2 whenever they get into the red zone. And so to start the third quarter, Shania Spencer goes ahead and leads them on another nice drive that brings them into the red zone here, thanks to a nice catch by Adriana Malamachi. Now now it's 1st and 12, and on 1st and 12, Spencer makes the rusher miss before cutting it up for 5 yards on the scramble. On 2nd down here, Spencer rolls out before just winning the edge and walking it in to making it 19-6. Another throw to Malamachi makes it 20-6 as Daytona begins to pull away. Now 7 minutes left in the third. This Daytona defense forces Point into a 4th and 1 situation here, and Point decides to go for it, but they throw it, and it's a nice deflection by the rusher to force a turnover on downs. And so Daytona starts in the red zone here, and they go ahead and make the most out of it. Actually, it comes down to a 4th down situation, and Spencer throws it, but her arm is hit by the rusher, a costly mistake by Point, as that would give them a fresh set of downs, and then they would just direct snap it to Haley Walsh, who runs it in to put Daytona up by 20. Then you have a couple more touchdowns. Spencer runs it in to make it 27-6, and then a deep throw late to Liliana Da Silva will make it 33-13, and that would be the score. Daytona State wins 33-13 here, winning their 2nd game in a row. Now let's go ahead and go to the stats before talking playmaker of the game. Shania Spencer, some struggles here as she played a little sloppy at quarterback. Still, I would consider her a playmaker of the game, though, because she did catch some great interceptions. But on offense, 19 of 27, 180 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 picks. Also had 51 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns, though, as well. Haley Walsh also with a rushing touchdown. In the wide receiving room, Adriana Malamachi led with 5 receptions, 62 yards. Liliana Da Silva, 3 for 41 and 2 touchdowns here for Point. You also had Katie Rodney with 4 for 41 and Haley Walsh, 6 for 40. And then on defense for Daytona here, Da Silva led with 3 pulls and a pass breakup, but it was Shania Spencer who really shined. 2 flag pulls, which tied Kiara Gomez and Miranda Diaz, but also had 3 interceptions for Daytona State, which was big time. Aubrey Barak, Sarah Lingo, and Denisia Turner each had an interception as well. And then you have Fan with a sack too, as Daytona State completely dominates Point in this one, winning really in the second half. 4 Point, very sloppy game to start the season. Kariah Williams at quarterback, 15 of 29, 176 yards, 2 touchdowns, 5 picks here. As far as the receivers go, Kenzie Fillion did her thing, 6 receptions, 101 yards. Leah Nathan, 2 for 45, and that 1 long touchdown for them as well. They also got 3 interceptions. Fillion, Shanair Shaheed, and Kiara Thomas each had a pick for point, but that would not be enough. Also, by the way, Amar Davila, Shaheed, and Nalea Naiden each having 4 flagpoles each here. But that would not be enough to go ahead and beat Daytona State, whose offense, I mean, they're consistent. I think they just had some sloppy plays where they weren't taking care of the football. They were driving up and down the field, but like I said, just sloppy plays there. Point, on the other hand, just really couldn't find some good consistency here, as this Daytona State defense was flying. They played great today, but I mean, this Point team didn't help themselves out either. So once again, Daytona State wins big time here over Point, 33-13. Now after that game, Point would end up playing Andrew College, and this one would definitely go their way. They would beat them 66-0 here. Kariah Williams, I think your playmaker of the game, she played excellent in this one. 11 of 18, 180 yards, 6 touchdowns. Kenzie Fillion, actually, sorry, let me go ahead and go with Kenzie Fillion. I feel like I've been going with a lot of quarterbacks lately, but she played great in this game. Actually had a 66-yard touchdown pass here, but also through the air, 5 receptions, 92 yards, and 3 touchdowns, having the hat trick plus 1 right there. Marissa Melendez was actually the lead receiver, though, 3 for 111 and 2. Shanair Shaheed, 1 20-yard touchdown, and then Kiara Thomas, another 20-yard touchdown for them. Defensively, Nylea Naiden led with 5 flagpoles and an interception. You also had Shanair Shaheed having 3 picks, Kiara Thomas having an interception as well, as Point bounces back quickly and takes care of Andrew College. And your playmaker of the game has to be Kenzie Fillion in this one. Now, for Andrew College, just a rough start to open the season here. Leading passer was Susanna Osei. Only 1 attempt, which was a completed 47-yard pass. But then you had Ava Davis at quarterback, 7 of 22. Only 11 yards and 4 interceptions. Ramaya Giro had 1 interception thrown as well on 1 pass attempt here. Danielle Warden was the one who caught that big 47-yard pass. But other than that, really nothing going for them on offense. Defensively, not much going for them either. Ava Davis and Susanna Osei, 3 flagpoles each as they led the squad here. So a tough go for Andrew College here, as Point takes care of them 66-0. Now, last game from Friday here, but I wanted to go ahead and go back to California and shout out Redlands. They would go ahead and play at the Cal Lutheran Invite. A couple club teams there, Cal Lutheran and Arizona State, and they would get their first wins, I believe, in program. They played last year. But they would get their first wins here to start this season at the very least here. They would beat Cal Lutheran 12-6. They would then lose to Arizona State 0-22, but then beat Arizona State 13-12 later on in that earlier in that day. They would beat them 13-12 and then lose to them 0-22. So there you go there. Just wanted to shout out Redlands on getting their first wins of the season. Now, moving on to Valentine's Day, February 14th, we had a number of games here. Some opening games here. Let's go ahead and start in Georgia at LaGrange College, hosting a number of games here, including Thomas, the Nighthawks, the new era Nighthawks, playing their first game against LaGrange. And this is how it would start. Ariana Christian, their athlete, rips off a massive 40-plus yard touchdown run at quarterback to put them up 6-0. Christian then completes a pass to make it 7-0 with roughly 6 minutes left in the first. Now this Thomas defense picks up where they left off, playing great to start the season, and Christian would get the ball back, and she would end up completing a big pass to Destiny Lockett on the post route to really get this drive moving. She would then go back to Lockett to get them past the midfield, and then to end this drive, Ariana Christian would end up running it in to make it 13-0. Following that, Thomas's defense would hold them scoreless in the first half here, but interesting enough, they would go ahead and sub in Destiny Lockett at quarterback, and she really wasn't able to get too much going there before half. Now, to start the third quarter, Lockett's still in at quarterback. She finds Ariana Christian, who's now at receiver, for a massive gain to get them across midfield. They'll then get into the red zone after a couple of plays, and the drive would end with Lockett ripping a throw up the seam to her center, Maya Richards, to give them the 3-score lead. A run right by Diva Jones will make it 20-0, and this game would pretty much be over. Final score of this one would be 26-0, as Thomas's defense played well, posting the first shutout of this season, the first one in the new era under new head coach Nyjah Seals for them. Now here's the box score. Let's go ahead and talk about that before we go into playmaker of the game here. For Thomas, it's interesting what went on at quarterback. Destiny Lockett would end up taking up the majority of the passing snaps here and end attempts, went 14 of 25 for 147 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks, did have 24 yards and a rushing touchdown though. Ariana Christian, in the time that she got in, was very efficient, 8 of 11, 88 yards, no interceptions, did also have 59 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns for them. Lead receiver for Thomas was Maya Richards, their center, 5 receptions, 77 yards and a touchdown. Ariana Christian right behind her, 5 for 44 receiving yards. Diva Jones, 4 for 32, and Destiny Lockett, 3 for 30. If I had to pick a playmaker of the game, I would probably go with Ariana Christian, who played very well in the offense, 88 passing yards, 59 rushing yards, and 2 touchdowns, as well as 44 receiving yards. On defense for them, Jordan Woodward would go ahead and lead them with 6 flag pulls, followed by Destiny Lockett and Ulysses Hodgson, with 4. Neka Dean had a sack in this one, and then, Ariana Christian, also 3 flag poles as well. So there you go. That's your playmaker of the game in Ariana Christian. Now for LaGrange here, no turnovers, but they just struggled to produce. Gracie Scott, 9 of 17, 39 yards here. No touchdowns, no picks. Did have 27 rushing yards. Jordan Rawlings, 14 rushing yards. Rihanna Osborne, 16 receiving yards on 2 receptions. That was their lead receiver. This Thomas team really came to play here. On defense, Renaya Elliott, had 7 flag pulls and an interception that led the team. Carmani Hampton also had another interception, but just not enough offensive production for LaGrange to compete with Thomas, as Thomas starts out strong, 26-0 over LaGrange. Now, moving on, we have Thomas now playing Reinhardt here. Reinhardt in their first game of the season, coming off a coaching change and a rough season last year as well, I believe, looking to turn the page and have a better 2026 year. And so here we go. Let's go ahead and get it started. Reinhardt starts with the ball. Their freshman quarterback, Alexis Wilson, ends up finding Kamari Tanzel on an out route to get them their first down. A couple plays later, Alexis Wilson would scramble to get them across midfield, but then this drive would stall out as his Thomas defense just played well and they would take over. 7:01 left here in the first quarter. Destiny Lockett in at quarterback and appears to be their starter. Finds her center, Maya Richards, who burns the defense for a long gain to get them a 1st and 5 across midfield. Following that, Lockett lofts a pass that could have went for a score, but this one is dropped. That brings up 2nd down here. Lockett finds Ariana Christian on the dig, who almost scores, but is just short of the end zone. It's about 1st and 3 here in the red zone. 2 plays later, Lockett finds Christian to make it 6-0, though, with 4:40 left. She would then go back to her to make it 7-0 as Thomas takes the lead. Now, for Reinhardt looking to respond, Wilson gets them across midfield thanks to a key 4th down play where she absolutely dives, leaving it on the field, and gets a key 1st down. But then on 3rd and long, she would take a shot down the right sideline, but that is the experienced DB, Diva Jones, who makes her pay for that mistake and intercepts that one as Thomas takes over. First and 18 at the start of the second quarter for Thomas here. Actually, let's go ahead and skip a couple plays. Third and long still after not much going on for Thomas on offense. Lockett finds Christian on the out, who makes the rest happen, slipping a pull and putting them in the red zone on an amazing play, giving them a 1st and 17 in the red zone. A couple incompletions in a row, though, and Reinhardt stays strong, getting the ball back, preventing Thomas from scoring here. Wilson at quarterback leads another drive. This time they get into the red zone thanks to a nice Victoria Salmon out route and catch. On 1st and 20, Wilson takes off before pitching it back to Nicole Ruse to make it 2nd and 14. On 2nd down, Wilson then takes a shot over the middle. It's on the money, but the receiver gets turned around here and ultimately drops what would have been a touchdown. That now brings up 3rd down here. On 3rd down, Wilson checks it down to Kalia Wimbush, but she's not able to score. It is now 4th and 5. Here we go. 4th and 5, Wilson rolling out wide, looking like she may just take off, but then she throws it to the late window on the slant to Victoria Salmon, who scores to make it 6-7, and would go ahead and give Reinhardt some much-needed life on their sideline. They would then go ahead and throw an out route on the PAT, but that is just short, so it stays right there at 6-7 with about a minute left here. Thomas looking to add to this lead. They are unable to, despite getting it past midfield on some missed throws and miscommunications. A lot of incompletions for Thomas in this first half. No turnovers, but just a lot of missed opportunities so far. Now, that'll be the score. Thomas leading 7-6 going to half, and they would actually get the ball to start half here. And here's how it would start out. It would be a double pass that comes back to Destiny Lockett, but she would drop the pass, and by the time she drops the pass, she is in the end zone. This is a costly mistake, as for, I believe, the first time ever in program history, Reinhardt takes the lead over Thomas 8-7. Not only that, because it's a safety to get the ball back. And so here we go. Reinhardt looking to add on to this lead. They get the ball near the top of the third here. A couple plays later, it is 3rd down. Wilson on 3rd, escaping the rush, throws an ill-advised pass late while rolling left. Destiny Lockett intercepts this one to go ahead and give Thomas the ball in the red zone. Thomas with a chance to go ahead and retake the lead quickly here with the 1st and 15 situation. 8:24 left. A couple overthrown passes and a rush later. It brings up 4th and 15 though. Not really being able to get too much, which has been on brand for Thomas so far this game. But finally on 4th and 15, Lockett drops back, finds a wide open Cam King on the post route to give Thomas the lead back, making it 8-13. Lockett then runs it in to make it 14-8. Thomas with the lead again. Now for Reinhardt, they will go ahead and get a key 1st down here, but a turnover on downs later on in this drive would end up killing this one as we go to the 4th quarter. But Thomas not able to get too much going here. A sack on 1st down would end up putting this Thomas team behind the sticks, and they would not be able to recover. That would end up being a turnover on downs. Reinhardt with 9:45 left, still an opportunity. They have a 1st and 14 approaching midfield after a throw over the middle. On this play here on 1st down, Wilson rushes left to make it 1st and 17 past midfield. She then throws it quickly to Nicole Ruse, who's able to bait a holding penalty that now makes it 2nd and 1. Then Wilson finds Tanzio left on an out route to go ahead and give them a 1st down in the red zone. 1st and 18 in the red zone with about 7 minutes left. On 1st down, Wilson throws the curl left to Blue McFarland. That goes for a decent gain. It's now 2nd and 9. On 2nd down, Wilson slips the rusher and goes right up the middle, but is stopped short of scoring. It's now 3rd and 3. 3rd down here, Wilson finds Kalia Wimbush on the check down. She baits the rusher to make that throw here, and Wimbush walks right in to tie this game at 14-14 with 5:41 left. PAT with a chance to go ahead and take the lead, but it is missed here. Thomas goes ahead and takes over with a chance to win the game on this drive. And so here we go. Lockett finds Maya Richards. That gives them a 1st and 11 approaching midfield here. A couple plays later, Lockett rolls right, finds Richards again over the middle, the play later makes it 2nd and 3. She then finds Ayanna Harris to get them across midfield to make it 1st and 14. Thomas is now rolling. Lockett runs up the middle. That goes for 4. 2nd down, another quick throw to Richards. That makes it a 3rd and 9. Not really going anywhere. 3rd down here. Lockett under pressure takes a shot left, but it is well covered and also just overthrown here. So now it is 4th down for Thomas. If they don't get this, Reinhardt gets a chance to take the lead here. Here's what happens. It is a post here to Diva Jones, and it is on the money. Heavily contested by Blythe Townsend here, who wrestles for the ball. And it looks like she comes up with it, but after looking at the replay a couple of times, it looks like Diva Jones was able to catch it, take a couple steps before the wrestling for the ball happened. So that looks like a catch here, and that is massive as it keeps Thomas alive in the red zone with a 1st and 3. Mind you, still tied, so they still got a score here. 1st and 3, Lockett throws it late, and it is incomplete. They end up calling a timeout at the 1-minute 20-second mark here. Out of the timeout, 2nd down here, Lockett tries to win to the corner, running it in, but Destiny Curtis for Reinhardt with a heroic dive, saves a touchdown, and now forces a 3rd down. On 3rd down here, Lockett rolls left, tries to flip it to Cam King, but it is bobbled and dropped. A massive mistake by Thomas. It is now 4th down with 29 seconds left. And on 4th down, Lockett under pressure. Those are kind of low here. I don't know if Diva Jones would have been able to catch it, but it is dropped here, incomplete, as Reinhardt gets the ball with 26 seconds left. And so here we go, Reinhardt on the verge of maybe one of the biggest wins in program history. Here is what happens on 1st down. It's a quick throw from Wilson to McFarland. She goes ahead and makes it 2nd and 10. They call a timeout with 18 seconds left. After the timeout here, 2nd down here, Wilson breaks free, gashes the defense on a scramble right, and gets a massive gain of 1st and 6 here, approaching midfield with about 9 seconds left. You're probably looking at about 2 plays here. On 1st down, Wilson runs around and finds Nicole Ruse, who gets a decent gain, but interesting enough here, it looks like the clock was not moving. They would end up running the clock afterwards, and it would run out of time. But the refs would go ahead and give Reinhardt a timeout here, they probably would have been able to get a timeout off and give them 4 extra seconds and another chance to maybe score here. And so with 4 seconds left here, 1st and 12 past midfield, not too far away, only 32 yards away from the end zone, Wilson gets the snap, immediately under pressure, tries to take off, and a diving pull by a Thomas rusher ends that, as we now go into overtime for Reinhardt. The first time ever they've been in an overtime game with Thomas. And so here we go. Thomas starting on offense. It is kind of like college rules. They start in the red zone, and you can either choose to go for 1 or go for 2, and then you got to match, right? And so here's what happens. Thomas on offense first are going for 1. Lockett gets the snap, throws it to a wide open Ariana Christian on the left quarter to make it an easy 15-14. Reinhardt elects to go for 2 for the win here, and here's what happens. Wilson gets the snap. The rush forces Wilson to roll out, and she tries to run for this one and reaches out, but is just 3 yards short here as Thomas survives a scare, a massive upset, potential upset against Reinhardt, but wins 15-14. Now let's go ahead and go into the stats before I talk about my opinion of this game afterwards, because to me, this was, I would say, probably game of the week if I had to say here, because this was just such a good game here, and I didn't expect it to be. Now, let's look at the stats for Thomas. Destiny Lockett in at quarterback, 13 of 34. 175 yards, did throw 2 touchdowns, no turnovers here, but did not get any rushing yards, only got 6 rushing yards on 4 attempts here, but no touchdowns on that. She struggled at quarterback. I just don't think she's really a quarterback. We'll talk about that afterwards. Let me get through all these stats first, actually. Receiving-wise, Ariana Christian led 4 receptions, 56 yards, and a touchdown. Also caught the game winner. She is my playmaker of the game here once more. Also had 3 flag pulls and a pass breakup. I thought she had a good all-around game and scored the times Thomas needed to go ahead and win this one. Second to Christian was Maya Richards with a 5 for 49. Diva Jones had that 1 reception for 25 yards, and then Cam King here had a receiving touchdown as well. Defensively, Destiny Lockett had 9 flag pulls, co-led with Hodgson here, who had 9 as well, and a sack. Lockett with an interception. Necadine, 3 pulls, 2 sacks, and then Diva Jones had that big-time interception. Like I said, if I had to pick playmaker of the game, I think it's Ariana Christian. She scored what they needed, also played good defense, played at a high level. For Thomas, though, I mean, you could check out the preview. I named a couple different players, including Cam King, who I thought maybe the quarterback for them. I thought that was going to be their biggest question, and I think it's still a question. Destiny Lockett last season played wide receiver and linebacker. This year, I mean, played a little bit of receiver to start, and then was their starting quarterback here in this Reinhardt game, and I just think she missed way too many passes. Now, it is game 2, technically. Even in game 1, she didn't look great, though. So we'll see if she gets better. But this does, to me, it just does not feel like a very sustainable option at quarterback if you're going to barely beat a Reinhardt by 1 in overtime. Now, I could be proven wrong. Time will only tell, right? We got to play better in games moving forward. That's just what it's going to have to come down to. For now, Thomas doesn't lose this game, but this was definitely a game that felt losable to them for a lot of regulation and even a little bit in overtime as well. Now, let's talk about Reinhardt here. I thought they really impressed, coming off a tough season, new coach, just a lot of new faces on this roster. I thought they did a good job keeping up with Thomas, and this was a competitive game, a game that they could have won, but were just a little bit shorted. They have a lot of young talent, right? Not as much experience as Thomas, and I think that showed at times down the stretch. Let's talk about their stats before I say any more, though. Alexis Wilson, the freshman, 19 of 33, 123 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Did have 75 rushing yards, though. Her lead receiver was Nicole Aruz, 10 receptions, 68 yards. Blythe Tanzo, 2 for 21. Also 3 touchdowns to Victoria Salmon and Kalia Wimbush as well. Defensively, Tanzo led with 4 flag pulls with Kamari Tanseal. And then it looks like Janiah Hughes had a sack for them. Like I said, Reinhardt was in this game here. I mean, even though there's some incompletions by Thomas that were just straight overthrows, I don't know if those throws would have been completed anyways with how tight the coverage is. Yes, I would say there were a couple times where there were some open receivers on some deep shots, and that's just athletes being better. But Thomas wasn't able to get those. And for Reinhardt, they really stuck in it. I like the choice going for 2 to win the game. I thought it was aggressive. I just think at the end, if you're Alexis Wilson from 10 yards out, you probably want to throw this one into the end zone rather than attempt to run it. And it was close, right? But this is a learning experience for the young quarterback, for this young program, and I hope they get better off of this one, but definitely impressed with this showing from Reinhardt. So there you go there. But Thomas, they prevail. They win in overtime 15-14. Now the last game I'm going to recap would be this game, Reinhardt versus LaGrange here over at LaGrange. Reinhardt would play this after that heartbreaking loss to Thomas here, and they would start out a little bit slow here, but near the end of the first half they would get going. Alexis Wilson in at quarterback commands to drive down the field and runs it in to give them their first touchdown and lead. She would then roll left on the PAT and flip it to Kamari Tanseal to give them the 7-0 lead. Now, it would remain scoreless as both defenses went to work here, and Reinhardt's offense took some time to get going. But here in the fourth quarter, early in the fourth, Wilson would be in the red zone. She would throw a great out route here on the right to go ahead and make it a 2-score game with 10:40 left. They would go up 13-0 as the PAT would be no good. And then on the next drive there, LaGrange makes a vital mistake on this next drive here as they will throw an interception to Kalia Davis, who almost returns it, but is stopped on the 1-yard line here, just outside. Sorry, not on the 1-yard line. In a 1st-and-1 situation, just outside the red zone, so on the 21-yard line here. And then on 1st down here, McRae gets loose, and Wilson just threads a needle deep, and McRae brings it in down the left sideline on a dagger to make it 19-0. A beautiful throw by Alexis Wilson on this 23-yard dart to McRae, and that would pretty much wrap it up as Reinhardt would end up beating LaGrange 19-0, not allowing another point. I think the playmaker of the game has to be Alexis Wilson as she led this team to a couple scores, especially that throw at the end where she finds McRae. A beautiful throw to go ahead and get a win for this new era Reinhardt team, and their first one of the season as well. Alrighty, and that'll wrap up this episode of the Playmaker's Corner podcast. Thank you so much for rocking with us. Remember, there will be an episode this Thursday here in a little bit. It will go over rankings, which will cover all the movement and wins and losses from week 0 and week 1 that I just recapped. It'll also declare a Playmaker of the week, and then some other things to recognize some of the other great players from these first 2 weeks of women's college flag football. Now, I know as I was going through this, there were some games that I missed. I wasn't sure if some games would be counted or not officially, but, women's college flag football, this is what I know for sure, has officially kicked off here. If we missed a team, an NAIA team, a junior college team, or an NCAA team that is a varsity team, not a club team, but a varsity program, please feel free to reach us out. We are expanding our coverage to cover these level of women's college flag football as the premier podcast and place for women's college flag football during the season. So there you go there. Make sure you check us out on social media at Playmaker's Corner and on our website at playmakerscorner.com to find all the content and all the times when new content will be coming out here. It's already been such a great start to the season and looking forward to more. Thank you so much for rocking with us, and we will catch you on Thursday.